Okay, hello. Welcome to tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Callum Nimmo, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. Before we begin, there are some housekeeping points to cover. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, by taking part, you are consenting to being recorded. Please can officers introduce themselves before speaking for the first time, and would everyone please use their microphones and also unmute them when you're finished speaking. If the fire alarm sounds either continuously or intermittently, I will adjourn the meeting. Please leave the meeting in an orderly fashion by the staff fire exit, which is behind me to my right. Officers will direct you to the assembly point in Riverside Gardens. So let's proceed to the agenda. I now move to item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence, of which we have none. I now move to item number 2. Do members have any declarations of interest? I will just note here that my ward is Hammersmith Broadway, of which a large number of the objectors are from. However, I've received no direct communication from any objectors, but just to put that on record. But it's not the same ward where the establishment is located. So moving to item number 3, Secrets 62 Glenthorne Road, London W60LR. I'd like to ask everyone participating to introduce yourselves as I call on you. So we should have with us Sarah Lefebvre, who's the barrister representing Secrets Hammersmith.
Good evening, sir. Yes, that's me, Sarah Lefebvre.
Lefebvre. Thank you. We should have Stephen Less, who is the Secrets Hammersmith director.
Sorry, that's me.
Thank you. We should have Alex Findley, who is Secrets Hammersmith Operational Manager.
That's me.
Thank you. We should have Nikki Richards, who's Secrets Hammersmith Technical Manager.
Oh, good evening.
Thank you. And Elena Grigsholu, who's Secrets Hammersmith Club Manager.
Good evening, President.
Thank you. And we should also have Neil Milligan, who's the Planning Enforcement Team Leader.
Good evening, that's me.
Thank you. We have Gerta Kodjalash, who's the Council's Legal Officer.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you. And we should have Armin Soleimani, who's the Council.
Good evening.
And for the responsible authority, we should have Adrian Overton, who's the Licensing Team Manager.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And objecting. So I've been informed that there's only one objector so far, which is Benita Cruikshank. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, thank you very much. And I've been, just as a sort of procedural matter, should other people who wish to object show up during the hearing before their allotted time, I will allow them to speak for their time. But as things stand, we only have one objector present. So moving to procedure. So before we consider the application today, I'd just like to confirm that in addition to the main agenda, the supplementary Agenda A was published on the 7th of October, 2025. So I will quickly explain the procedure that the committee will follow. So we will hear from first of all, the licensing officer will introduce the application. Then we will hear from the responsible authority. Then we will hear from the objectors, and then finally the applicant. So usually each party will address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. Following the presentation by all parties, the committee may ask questions of any party or any other person present at the hearing. Except committee members, no party has the right to ask questions of any other party at any time during the hearing. And following the presentation and questioning, each party will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to sum up their case or representation. Then the committee will retire for deliberations, and upon its return, I will announce the committee's decision. So turning to the presenting officer, can I please ask Neil Milligan, who's the Planning Enforcement Team Leader, to introduce the application?
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for the renewal of a sexual entertainment venue licence, originally due to expire on 31st of March 2025. You'll see that in Appendix 1 to 3 in the bundle before you. There were no changes to conditions on the licence. This is merely a renewal. There was a decision to postpone the original hearing in June due to the need to clarify certain licensing enforcement matters, and Adrian Overton will speak on those later. In the meantime, the business has been allowed to continue trading. There are 32 outstanding representatives, and they're shown in Appendix 4 to 8 of the bundle with associated correspondence also shown. Members are required to make a decision on the renewal based on the provisions of the Act, submissions made by the applicant and representatives, and the provisions of the Council's own sex establishment policy, and that's shown in Appendix 9. In the light of the delays and continued permission to trade, it is up to the licensing subcommittee, if they decide to renew, when the expiry date of this license will be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Neil, for that. And now move to responsible authority. So, Adrian Overton, if you may speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Just by way of background, the Licensing Authority has made a representation to this application on the basis of a number of factors. Firstly, an incident which took place outside the premises in November 2024, and 2 anonymous complaints about the operation of the business in January 2025 and May 2025. I'm aware that you will have seen footage from the November 2024 incident and will have seen staff from Secrets involved in an altercation outside the premises whilst trying to usher a group of customers away. The police licensing team have confirmed in relation to this incident that it was reported to them and that it was recorded as an assault on 2 members of staff at the premises. I understand from the licence holder that the employment of one of the door supervisors involved in this incident was terminated as a result of what happened. Following on from this, in January 2025, an anonymous complaint was made to the licensing team which concerned drugs being consumed on the premises and various breaches of licensing conditions. It was also alleged that performers in the venue were engaging in sexual activity with customers at the venue. On this occasion, the complainant could not be contacted, so an investigation could not take place fully. However, as a result of this complaint, a full licensing inspection was carried out at the premises in April 2025. This inspection took place with Caterina Giamarezzi, the Council's Vorg lead. During the visit, Mrs. Giamarezzi spent time speaking to the performers at Secrets and asked for their thoughts on their employment at the premises. In summary, the overall response from the performers was positive, and it seemed to show that they were happy to work there. However, a breach of Condition 28 was identified during the visit, and it was confirmed that 2 external display cabinets were in use rather than 1, as is permitted by Condition 28. I understand that this issue has now been rectified. A second anonymous complaint was then received on the 17th of May 2025. The licensing team contacted the complainant asking for more information. During a phone call with the complainant in June 2025, allegations were made in relation to the following points. Touching and sexual activity between customers and performers, cameras not working in a number of the booths at the premises, managers allegedly taking money from performers to use booths where sexual activity was taking place, and drug use allegedly taking place on the premises. Ms. Giamarezzi also spoke with the complainant over the phone in August 2025, and in summary, she stated the following after this phone call. From what the performers say, it seemed to be more of an issue with a breach of license, allowing physical touching, etc., rather than a Vorg sexual exploitation issue. I asked if they believed any women were being coerced or forced to do anything against their will, and they didn't believe that this was the case and believed it was an agreement. After this, a further visit to the premises then took place on the 18th of September 2025, and this visit was primarily to check for CCTV footage from various dates and times over the previous 31-day period. At the time of the inspection, the CCTV system was found to be correctly working, and whilst there was no evidence of inappropriate behaviour between performers and customers, it was noted that there was not full coverage of some of the booths. In summary, I think it's fair to say that there have been management failings at the premises, particularly in relation to the incident in November 2024, where door supervisors involved themselves in an altercation rather than retreating into the safety of the premises. However, this was addressed very quickly by terminating the employment of one member of staff and retraining the door team involved. The investigation into both of the anonymous complaints has not been able to show any unlawful activity taking place at the premises. However, it has identified the need for improved CCTV so that any future complaints can be investigated quickly. With this in mind, I would recommend that a full review of the CCTV system takes place to ensure full coverage in each booth, in all of the booths in the premises. We would also ask that a diagram is produced which shows the layout of the venue with each camera clearly identified to show which direction it's facing. We suggest that this diagram should also be made available to the licensing authority and also displayed on the wall or some other place where performers can find that. We would finally request that any CCTV footage is held for 62 days in future to help with any further investigations. I understand that this may be an issue for the license holder, so we would be willing to accept a slightly reduced a period of time where CCTV is kept, but we just think it should be longer than the 31 days as it is at the moment. I don't have any other comments or recommendations at this stage, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I would now like to move to the objectors. So we still only have one objector with us, which is Benita. So Benita, can I ask you to speak? You have up to 5 minutes to do so. Thank you.
Hello, I'm surprised that some of the other people who responded to the original request for a license are not here, but never mind, we all wrote letters. There was confusion over whether the terms would change or not, and you made the point that they're exactly the same, and we were all reassured by that. By the way, I'm a neighbour from round the corner. I'm not concerned with what goes on inside the club. I'm just concerned with what goes on outside it, particularly late at night. Recently, there seems to have been quite a clean-up. We did at one stage have a lot of vomit and a lot of other stuff, and in my road as well, which is on the corner. That all seems to be pretty good. I'm not complaining about the club as such at the moment. I would just like them to keep those standards of how they maintain what goes on around the club as it is at the moment, as far as I know. I think it might be a good idea to clean up the appearance. If you look upstairs, the windows are all a bit grubby and the curtains are all a bit tattered. If you're going to do a job, then do it well, clean it up. The only thing I put in my letter, which I don't think really would mean anything to this meeting, is that the club where it is in rather an odd place, and it must attract an awful lot of people who don't live in the area. And the people who live in the area are either old, like me, I'm 84, or very young because they go to schools around there. So it seems such a really odd sight. But having said what I've said, it's sort of contradicting what I'm saying, which is I'm not asking for the place to go or be moved. I just want it to stay the same, well organized, and not interfere with the local community in any way. If that's an objection, fair enough, but I'm not really objecting. I'm trying to make a point. That's all I wanted to say, really. I'll stop.
Thank you. Thank you, Benita, for your not quite objection. And can I move to the applicant? So can I ask Sarah Lefebvre, who's the barrister representing Secrets? So considering there's only been 2 objections, then yeah, you have up to 10 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Quite quickly. You've read the papers. You know you have a statement from Mr. Leese in the bundle, and I know you'll have absorbed that already. You know, therefore, that this is a premises that is operated as a table dancing venue, licensed fully as required at these premises under continuous ownership since 1997. It's coming up for 30 years now. There has been historically very substantial investment to transform the venue from what it was, a traditional nightclub, vertical drinking type establishment, that's 30 years or so ago, into what it's been since. The objector, or not quite objector, might be glad to know that what is planned is an improvement to the external facades in the imminent future. We're waiting for your decision today to make sure that we have a licence, but that is in hand and planned to be discussed in brief with Mr. Overton previously. Long-term, stable, highly experienced owners. You know that Mr. Lees, for example, has been in hospitality, operating venues of this type throughout the centre of London for some 50 years now. Involved 2 other secrets venues in central London and a further venue, the Gaslight in Westminster currently. We do seek renewal of this SEV licence to reflect the same hours, the same operation, the same terms and conditions granted most recently just last year, as one has to do for SEV premises licences. There's a degree of confusion, you might think, crept into some of the representations as to whether we were asking for extension or additional hours. No, that's not the case. It's never been the case. It is a renewal application. Your policy, sir, is very clear. There is a presumption to grant where the application is for a renewal of an existing licence. Of course, you'll take into account the other factors that policy directs you to, levels of crime, disorder, and so on in the area, the position of the police or responsible authorities. You may think there's not quite an objection from a responsible authority either. There are points of information, very helpful points of information, and you may be glad to know that in advance of today, we have confirmed to Mr. Overton that we're more than happy to put in place all of the additional measures in respect of CCTV that he's presented to us. So that is not a problem, and that is already in hand. And indeed, the premises manager, Ms. Grigorescu, has just completed a 3-day CCTV course. I'm not quite sure what one can learn over 3 full days, but she has completed it and done it. The silence of the police is significant. We work closely with them. They have never raised their voice against the grant or the potential renewal of this application. We do work, as I say, very closely with them. It is an application to continue providing a wholly lawful species of entertainment. There are some references within the representations to it being a dirty business or a money laundering business or concerns about impact on property values. All of that is wholly irrelevant, I hope you agree, to your decision today. And it is an application to continue providing that same lawful entertainment for the next however long you're minded to grant, if you're minded to grant at all today. There's no suggestion of any prospective imminent changes in the locality. There's no relevant change in character in the locality in the last year since the last grant of this licence. There have been repeated inspections by licensing officers. You have that evidence, and you've heard the premises response to the proposals, the only proposals that have come out of those inspections. No concern has been raised by any commercial neighbour at all, still less by the school. No issue has been raised by any customer who's ever had a negative experience within these premises. You have the appendices to Mr. Leese's witness statement, which is some hard evidence of a customer who speaks highly of his experience within the venue. And of course, you have Ms. Giamosi's repeat evidence to say, yes, I speak directly to the performers, unsupervised, candidly, and they too speak very highly, the best, the safest venue that they work in. You'll probably know that in the MPS assessment, premises of this type are typically thought of as being a significantly lower impact, representing lower risk to any of the licensing objectives than a more standard liquor licensed venue, really of any kind. That's because of characteristics that Secret shares, as you know from Mr. Leese's witness statements, the tiny, frankly tiny customer attendance, the extremely high ratio of staff to customers, the low music noise, background music only because it's conversational and must be conversational, the very high level of regulation that premises of this type are rightly subject to, the much lower alcohol consumption. All of this stands in stark contrast to licensed to nightclub type, vertical drinking type venues. virtually no risk of queuing, virtually no risk of external static crowds, virtually no risk of noisy extended periods of patron dispersal. The premises is easily big enough to hold all of its customer base and then some within its confines. None of that to say we don't take everything that's said very seriously indeed. There's the specific incident, now 11 months or approaching 11 months old, no precursor, no repeat, properly and safely to be treated by you as a one-off. Mr. Lees has dealt with that in his witness statement. There was an internal investigation necessary to find out what happened and then why what happened so that the causes could be addressed and rooted out. A customer had required reminding about his conduct. He was being rude to performers. He was asked to leave. He didn't like being asked to leave. The security staff were dealing with him and his friend leaving. A member of bar staff actually became involved, trying to be helpful, but perhaps trespassing beyond his expertise, wasn't security trained. The incident spilled outside the premises, resulting in the assault that you've heard of. Unacceptable. We take it extremely seriously. There was that internal investigation. There was actually training accorded to non-SIA staff, so managers and staff alike, uplifting them so that they're more aware of conflict management processes to SIA through SIA training. In fact, the individual member of staff who was involved was first suspended and then permanently removed from the premises. And in fact, it seems to have worked because there has been no repeat of any like incident since then. That's probably the real benefit for us of the time or the delay or the adjournment in the application being heard, because we've had more time to prove ourselves. It's very comforting to hear that's what's been said to my left, that it's not quite an objection in fact. So I've spoken very fast indeed to get everything I wanted to say in. I would suggest that the way in which the premises has responded to that incident is hard evidence of the responsible approach that this long-term licensee takes to its license and issues that are raised with it about its license. But I do invite you to grant, in line with the presumptions set out clearly in your policy, in respect of this renewal application. I'm sorry, I did start my stopwatch. I think I'm 30 seconds over, perhaps the time limited. Well, I've spoken so extraordinarily quickly, probably very tiringly to everybody who's had to listen, but I have actually said everything that I was intending to say. I think I held myself rather strictly to the 2.5 minutes that was taken to my left and aimed for 7.5 minutes instead.
Well, thank you very much. For your report there. So I now turn to committee questions.
He's technically doing fine here, so maybe just read up to here rather than like
apologies. So I now turn to committee questions. And can I ask each committee member to ask questions of any party about the application and the issues that have been raised at the hearing? So do members have questions? Councillor Harcourt.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Just a few questions from me. Firstly, firstly for me, regarding the number of objections we've had, a lot of them, as we've heard, have been based on a misunderstanding in terms of the renewal. Most of them make reference to a 9 a.m. to 4 a.m. extension of hours and such like, which is obviously not what it's about. Does that in any way invalidate those objections? I know they touch on other issues around noise and such like. I don't know, Adrian, whether that's you.
I'm happy to take that one. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. No, in my view, it doesn't. No, it's an objection. I mean, they may have got the times or the purpose of the application wrong, but they're making an objection to a particular application, so it doesn't invalidate it. No.
Okay. Still on objections, then, your objection is that I wasn't quite clear from reading the papers whether you'd actually withdrawn your objection or whether it's a sort of not quite an objection. That's for the purpose of this, whether it still sits or not.
Yeah, I have. I think it's fair to say I have sat on the fence. I'm not saying it's withdrawn. I just wanted to give all of the information to the committee this evening for you to make a decision. I have made some recommendations, which obviously the licence holder has accepted. But obviously there was the serious incident in November and there's been the anonymous complaints. So I felt it was best not to come to a conclusion and to say, I think this should happen or that should happen, and just leave the information and the facts with you.
Councillor Harcourt.
I've got a few more.
Apologies, we were not allowed to ask questions, but Councillor Harcourt can ask a question if he wishes.
Exactly what he said. We were all confused. We all thought from that application that it was going to change, and we all panicked.
Thank you. Sorry, only members are allowed to ask questions at this present moment, but noted.
Well, thanks for that clarification. There's obviously that incident that we've all seen the video of. Have there been any other complaints other than the other two that I'll come on to in a moment that you've mentioned over the last year, shall we say?
Nothing else that I'm aware of. No, that's been that the licensing authority have been made aware of. No.
Okay, thanks. Then on to those two specific complaints. Were you able to ascertain who the actual complainants were and whether their complaints were hearsay, rumour, or whether they'd actually attended the establishment and seen things firsthand?
So it's difficult to comment fully on them because they were anonymous complaints, but the first, and they asked to be anonymous, but the first complainant, obviously asked to be anonymous and mentioned a number of things that took place in the premises, and we investigated those particular issues. When we tried to contact them to get more information from them, we weren't able to contact them. So there was a very short investigation. It was basically based on an email that they sent us. The second anonymous complainant, we contacted them, didn't get a response initially, and then just before the last hearing, they then came back to us and said, yes, we would like a phone call with you. So I had a phone call with them, and my colleague in community safety, the VORG lead, also had a conversation with them as well. And we got some more information from them that we investigated. Again, it's very difficult without going into the detail of it because that person wants to be anonymous. I can't go into the exact detail of what they said, but we believe that we fully investigated their concerns.
And that the complaints were made in good faith rather than just based on hearsay or rumour?
We believe the complaints were made in good faith, yeah.
But there's nothing when the investigation didn't substantiate them?
No, we were unable to substantiate them, yeah. I think what we did, Katerina said after speaking to the second anonymous complainant, that she was satisfied that person didn't believe that there was any coercion or that any performers were being were sort of kept on the premises against their will. So that was her finding from speaking to the second anonymous complainant.
Can I just ask you what the justification is for wanting CCTV to be kept for 60 days rather than the more normal 30, 31 days, whatever it might be?
Just in relation to the complaints, really, where the second anonymous complainant said, oh, something happened at a particular time, and then the CCTV as it had expired by that point. So whilst we could investigate the general operation of the premises, we weren't able to investigate particular times and dates because it was outside of the 31-day period. Obviously, I can't say how far outside of it, but it was outside of that period. So now in future, I think with the with the CCTV being a lot clearer, and with the cameras being a lot clearer, and with there being all the booths being covered, and with the longer CCTV, that will just help us investigate any other complaints in the future.
Thanks. And to the applicants, would that pose a problem for you? 60 days?
We need to do a little bit of work on our systems, but the instructions have already been given to the security firm, so we can do it.
And just to clarify again what Mr. Overton said, apparently there was some of the booths were not fully covered by CCTV. Has that been addressed?
Yes, is the answer to that. For what it's worth, we agree that the suggestion is a good one to produce a diagram showing the position and orientation of the cameras by numbering. It's good practice, and we take the suggestion gratefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harcourt. No question, Councillor Alfonso. Yeah, I mean, just more on the CCTV. So just to be perfectly clear that there will be CCTV installed that covers every single booth and giving complete coverage should this situation like this arise.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Thank you very much. I also, I guess, want to ask about the previous committee when this application was initially granted. So I'm not sure, Adrian or Neil, who wants to field this one, but just for the committee's information, when was this premises last before licensing subcommittee when it was initially granted?
I can cover that, Chair. We've got 2 hearings in 2020 and 2021. And since then, the licenses have been approved under delegated. So from 2022 to 25, that's delegated decisions. And
just to be clear, that it was delegated because there were no objections at that time?
Correct.
And one further question to the applicants as well. I mean, we saw the security footage that Councillor Harcourt mentions. Could one of you speak to what your security arrangements are at the moment in terms of door staff?
Hi, Alex. So we have SIA trained personnel on the door every single night. We have 1 external to meet and greet, and obviously some people on their way also helping with the dispersal policy. And we have 1 to 2 SIA personnel internal as well.
4 in total?
We have 2 to 3, depending on the evening, not including the management themselves. Sorry, 3 every evening now.
Every evening. And what did the manager, do your comments suggest? Does the management themselves have sort of specialist training in this regard as well? Or?
Yes, we put our management through SIA training after the event of November last year.
Thank you very much. Just a few clarifications there. Well, I think no further questions from myself. Yeah, Councillor Harcourt, do you want to come back in?
Apologies, Chair, for me again. Just 2 quick ones. One is to Mr. Milligan. You said in your opening comments, it's up to us as a committee as to when the date we end this current application for the renewal. My understanding was that the renewal would be backdated to whenever it was, end of March, beginning of April, or do we have authority to vary that?
My understanding is your authority to vary that. I mean, you would be effectively giving a year if you backdated it, but my understanding is you can give it for a year from now onwards. Maybe Adrian could just clarify that point.
I think, I don't know, I refer to legal colleagues, but I think if you were to renew it this evening, it would only be renewed up until the 31st of March next year. And then a further renewal would need to come in from the 1st of April 26 to 27. That's my understanding.
I mean, I think having reviewed the statutory framework, I don't think it's entirely clear about what we do in this situation. What it says is that when the renewal hearing has been adjourned, the license remains in force. So the license is currently in force. And then this decision is about whether to renew the license continuing in force for another year. So, I mean, theoretically, you could do it from today, or you could backdate it. So the position isn't entirely clear. And I would invite submissions from Ms. Lefebvre on that point as well.
I'd certainly defer to your legal advisor on the point. It's not entirely clear, and so there are different practices that I've seen and heard applied and adopted by differing licensing authorities. So I think it's probably better that you take your own legal advice on that, and we'll accept that whichever way you fall.
And one final question to the applicants. The objector made some comments about the area having been tidied, cleaned up, and the building, the state of the building. Do you have any plans regarding that sort of work?
We certainly do, and I'm sorry, this is probably a victim of my speed speaking in making the application. It is our intention to look after the exterior of the venue as soon as we know, if we're lucky enough to have the licence renewed today, that we have it renewed. The plan is for a pretty, I've seen some indicative images. It is smart. It's accepted that the premises needs to be smartened up. We can certainly incorporate the window cleaning into that as well. But the whole of the paintwork around the externals will be significantly improved. So I think it'll be a better visual neighbour than it is presently.
And the surrounding area, which was mentioned as well.
So we clean at the beginning the external areas outside our curtilage at the beginning of a shift. I'm not sure, I'd like to take the credit, but I'm not sure we can take any credit for the uplift that's been noticed recently in terms of the extremely unpleasant, no doubt, vomit and the like in the external parts. So we're glad that it is reducing, of course, but we don't carry out any sort of late litter pick or street cleaning exercise. Street cleaning at the times that we close is likely, of course, to create its own noise nuisance, and we'd have to be sensitive about that. And then the street cleaners are there at their usual time the next day in any event. So as I say, we'd like to take credit, but I think perhaps we can't take credit, and it may be that those who are responsible have found different patterns for their behaviour, which of course we can monitor and keep an eye on. But we are very glad to hear that it is a good experience at the moment to be a neighbour of ours.
Well, if there's no further questions, well, in which case, I'd like to invite some of the parties to sum up. So please can the parties sum up as briefly as possible in the following order. So first of all, Neil Milligan, the Planning Enforcement Team Leader.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's been reasonably clear what the views and opinions are regarding the application from the representatives here this evening. So I have nothing significant to add to that now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Adrian Overton, who's the Licensing Team Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Only one point, really. I mean, I suppose if there is some flexibility in terms of the renewal of the licence, if you did have any concerns about the operation of the premises, you could take the view only to renew it until the end of March, and then obviously there's another renewal, and you could see how the premises operates over the next few months, you know, to take into account the residents' concerns, etc. But nothing else from me at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Benita Cruikshank, if you would like to sum up, you have up to 3 minutes. Thank you.
It's just that I feel that the customers have cleaned up, not the premises so much, but there's been less unpleasantness around the area, possibly because the customers have changed. And I wanted to ask another question about that. How many customers do you have license for, and what do you do if they can't get in? Because I wondered if that had made a difference of some sort.
Apologies, Benita, you can't ask questions of any other
party. I can't ask this question. It's what came up in my mind as we were discussing this issue, because if people are angry, then they're more likely to create mess. And I would assume that people are not angry. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, turning to Sarah Lefebvre, you have up to 6 minutes to sum up.
I shan't take the 6, and I'll start by answering the not quite a question that's just been posed. We're bound by numbers by our fire risk assessment, which would allow us 175 people. So that will give you an idea of the scale of the premises. But in fact, you know from Mr. Lee's witness statement, it's fractional. The average number of customers on any night, and that's any night of the week, whether that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, weekends, is 33. So yes, we have very considerable scope and flexible and comfort margins around the numbers who attend and the scale of the venue. That's why I say with absolute confidence we can hold any number of the whole of our customer base at any time within the premises and manage them safely inside, minimising the risk of any noise nuisance being generated by those individuals. It's partly why the police do like premises of this type so much, because the model is so very atypical as measured against most licensed premises. I perhaps don't really need to say very much. I hope what you've taken from this hearing is that this is a candid organisation and a responsible organisation which has looked to extract the learning from the unacceptable incident of November of last year and apply it apparently entirely effectively, because there has been no repeat since. I would suggest to you that you've heard nothing, quite the contrary, in fact, to displace the presumption in your policy that a renewal application will be granted. And perhaps I don't need to say very much more. In fact, I'd be certainly repeating myself if I did.
Sorry, just one further question, just on advice. You mentioned, I believe at the start, but just to clarify that you are accepting the conditions as posed by the licensing authority in full.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's just useful to nail down some wording so that everyone's on the same page when we publish the decision.
Yes, or Mr. Overton's suggestion, and we can comply with the wording that he's presented. I suppose the question for you, Chair, might be, given what you've heard in the course of this hearing, given that we will be back making an application at very least in a year's time from now, or very most in a year's time from now, whether you think it essential to condition that which you know is, because we told you, is going to happen in any case at all. That's a matter for you. But Mr. Overton's wording can probably be lifted pretty closely from his representation at 3A.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for being in the hearing. So the committee will now retire to take its deliberations in a separate room. You're welcome to remain in the meeting to hear the committee's decision. However, this may take some time. If you do not wish to wait, a summary decision will be published on the council's website tomorrow morning. Can I therefore ask all members to mute the microphones and move to the conference room for deliberations? Thank you. Thank you very much. So the committee has decided the following. So the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, summary decision of the licensing subcommittee, otherwise known as the committee, on the 8th of October 2025 in relation to secrets, 62 Glensholm Road, London, W60LR, otherwise known as the premises. So the committee has considered an application for the renewal of the Sexual Entertainment Venue SEV license under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, otherwise known as the application. In summary, the committee has decided, after taking into account all of the individual circumstances of this case and the relevant policy and guidance, to grant the application until the 31st of March 2026 and oppose conditions attached to the previous license, to add to the license conditions proposed those proposed by the licensing authority as agreed by the applicant, for CCTV coverage to be available in every booth located at the premises, for high definition CCTV footage to be held for 62 days, and for a diagram to be produced which shows the layout of the venue, with each camera clearly numbered and identified to show which direction it is facing. A copy of this committee's full decision, including its reasons and the full text of the conditions to be added to the license, will be sent to the parties forthwith. If the applicant is unhappy with the decision, they are entitled to appeal to the Magistrates' Court within 21 days from the date of notification of the full decision, which is the decision of the Licensing Subcommittee on the 8th of October 2025. Thank you very much, and